The massive, jagged silhouette of the mining station began to loom over the purple horizon of Sector 4. It was a place where hope went to die, and where the corporation known as Helix came to exploit the land until nothing remained. Their only goal was to maximize revenue, regardless of the human cost. Cale sat in the corner of a dimly lit bar, watching the corporate guards bully a young merchant. They used their size and weapons to terrify the locals, a constant reminder of who was truly in charge. Cale took a sip of his synthetic drink. He used to aspire to be a fleet commander, driven by a burning desire to see the galaxy. He would yearn for the stars, feeling an undeniable itch to leave the ground. But life in Sector 4 had a way to sort people out. The system excluded dreamers like him. Now he simply tried to cope with the boredom. He watched the guards laugh, knowing any attempt to stop them would result in a swift execution. He knew he should strive to be better, but apathy was a heavy chain to break. Until tonight. Tonight, the air felt different. A change was about to commence.
A woman slid into the booth opposite him.
She did not conduct herself like the usual patrons. Her clothes were too clean, her eyes too sharp, instantly inducing a sense of unease in him. She leaned closer to avoid audio sensors. "I know you used to smuggle tech parts," she whispered, her voice like velvet. She placed a small chip on the table, using it as bait to capture his attention. "We want to allure you back into the game, Cale." A hologram flickered above the chip, a credit amount large enough to buy a planet. "I have a job," she said, "and I want to assign it to you specifically." Cale looked at the credits. "What do I have to do?" "We need you to undertake a retrieval mission, but this is not a standard cargo run." She tried to reassure him, insisting he would be protected, but the contract had one dark clause: no questions asked. "You need to kidnap a VIP from a Helix transport," she admitted finally. Cale hesitated. He didn't want to impede his own survival by crossing the biggest corporation in the galaxy, but she pushed harder. "If you refuse, we will designate you as a collaborator with the rebels anyway." It was a trap. He had no choice but to agree. Cale spent the next day preparing his ship, the Wraith. He had to undo the safety locks on the engines, pushing the reactor to dangerous levels. To survive, he needed to disguise his vessel. He used a signal jammer to conceal his heat signature, making the ship appear as floating debris. He distributed power to the shields manually, preparing for the worst. "System check," he muttered. He was ready to launch. As the ship blasted into the vacuum, he prepared to dispatch a sensor probe into the asteroid field ahead. The target was in range, a heavily armoured prison transport. Cale felt the G-force crush his chest as he swung the Wraith behind a massive rock. He tackled the navigation computer, calculating the exact moment to strike. His plan was reckless. Detach the magnetic clamps of the enemy ship while moving at hypersonic speeds. He could not omit a single calculation. He deleted his flight path logs, then prepared to dispose of the sensor drone to erase all evidence. "Here goes nothing," he whispered. He was about to hijack a government vessel. The boarding process was violent. Sparks flew as Cale cut through the airlock. He expected a corrupt politician or a CEO. Instead, he found a girl, barely 20, shivering in a holding cell. She looked at him with absolute panic. "Please," she sobbed, "don't let them convict me without a trial." Cale paused. The mission was beginning to deviate from the plan. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am a scientist," she stammered. "Helix plans to expel toxic waste into the atmosphere. They want to erase the evidence." "They are planning a massacre, Cale. The total decimation of Sector 4. Cale felt a cold hand grip his heart. This wasn't a ransom job. They wanted her dead, quietly, away from the public eye. He had been used. He made his decision. "We are leaving," he said firmly. The alarms on the transport ship began to scream. "We must flee!" the girl cried. Guards rushed down the corridor, trying to impede their escape. Cale grabbed her arm. "Run!" They sprinted to the airlock. Cale fired his blaster, forcing the guards into cover. They dove into the Wraith. Cale slammed the release button, but the enemy ship invoked a tractor beam protocol. An invisible force latched onto them. "I can't break free!" Cale shouted. He sorted through engine subroutines, frantic. "I need to fulfill the override sequence." He pushed the engines to critical mass. With a deafening roar, the ship ripped free from the beam's grip. They shot into darkness. But it wasn't over. Helix would send hunters. They would not exclude any method to silence them. Drifting in the silence of deep space, Cale tried to reassure the terrified girl. "You are safe now," he said, though he wasn't sure it was true. He couldn't undo her trauma, but he could give her a voice. "We will conduct a global broadcast," he decided. "We will use their own satellites." He uploaded the data she carried, not omitting a single file. Blueprints, orders, the massacre plan. All of it blasted to the news networks. The data would dispel the shadows Helix hid behind. Cale looked out at the stars. For years, he had only felt fatigue, but now, purpose. He had coped with his past by saving the future. "We did it," he told the girl. "We managed to tackle the giant." They would live on the run, but for the first time, Cale felt he had fulfilled a real destiny. He was no longer a miner. He was a guardian. And he was ready for whatever came next.